I want to tell you about the moment I realized my best friend of 22 years had been sitting across from me at dinner the night before I left for Bali, smiling already knowing what she was going to do. I want you to hold that image while I tell you this story, because everything about what happened makes more sense when you understand that the person who destroyed my engagement, my apartment, and 4 months of my life was someone I had shared a bedroom with on a school trip at age 13. Someone who had been the maid of honor at my sister's wedding. Someone whose mother still sent me a card every Christmas. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it actually started. My phone rang at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I was still in Bali. The number was James's. I answered immediately because James never called that early. James was not an early morning call kind of man, and something in the pit of my stomach already knew. Silence. Then, who is Daniel? The world didn't end dramatically. No crash of thunder, no music sting. Just those 3 words, quiet and completely flat from the man I was supposed to marry in 7 months. Who is Daniel? And me sitting on the edge of a bed in a villa in Bali, with the ceiling fan turning slowly overhead, understanding in one terrible second that someone had told him, before I even knew what there was to tell. Stay with me, because this story is not what you think it is yet. And by the end of it, I promise you, you will not see the last twist coming. Welcome back to Ravage Stories, where secrets come out, betrayals get exposed, and the people who thought they'd get away with it never do. If you're new here, subscribe, join the family. You're going to want to be here for what comes next. Drop a comment where you are listening from. It means a lot to me. Now let's go. My name is Mara, and before any of this happened, I would have told you I had a very good life. Good job. I was a senior architect at a firm I had worked at for 6 years. Good apartment. Mine bought myself, which I was quietly proud of every single day. And a good man. James. We had been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. The proposal had happened at a restaurant we loved. No fuss, no flash mob. Just him across the table saying, "I've been trying to figure out the right moment for 6 months, and I've realized there isn't one. So, will you marry me?" I said yes before he finished the sentence. James was the kind of man who remembered things, not just birthdays, things. The name of the barista at your regular coffee place, the anniversary of something difficult, the way you like your eggs on a bad morning versus a good one. I was not someone who took that for granted. And then there was Soph, Sophie Aldrin, my best friend since we were 6 years old, and she moved into the house 3 doors down and knocked on our door to ask if I wanted to ride bikes. 22 years, more than half my life. We had done everything together. First day of secondary school, first heartbreaks, first apartments, first everything. She was my person, the one I called when something was wrong, the one who showed up with wine and no questions, the one who knew every version of me that had ever existed. I thought I knew every version of her too. I didn't. The Bali trip had been Soph's idea. She had been through a rough 18 months. A long relationship had ended badly, work had been stressful, and she had that particular brand of tiredness that isn't physical. "I need to go somewhere," she said one evening in my kitchen. "Somewhere completely different. Come with me. Soph, I have the Henderson project until—" "Mara, I need this. 2 weeks, just us." When did we last do something just us? She wasn't wrong. It had been years. I talked to James. He was characteristically generous about it. "Go. You and Soph haven't had a proper trip since that disastrous one in Portugal." That trip was not disastrous. You came home with a sprained ankle and food poisoning, simultaneously, which is actually impressive. He laughed. "Go to Bali. Have the best time. It'll be here when you get back." I kissed him. "I love you." "I love you too. Bring me back something." "Something specific? Or are you trusting my judgment?" "Absolutely not trusting your judgment. Surprise me." I want to pause here and tell you something about Soph that I didn't fully understand until much later. Soph had always been the more spontaneous one, the louder one, the one who walked into rooms and immediately knew everyone's name, and I had always been quietly, genuinely happy for her. What I had not noticed, because it is very difficult to notice something in someone you've known for 22 years, was that at some point the dynamic had shifted. She had stopped being happy for me in the same way. Not dramatically, not obviously, just a fraction of a second before the warmth there was something else. Something I had explained away so many times I had stopped seeing it entirely. We landed in Bali on a Thursday afternoon, hot, green, loud in the best possible way. Soph grabbed my arm the moment we walked out of the airport. Mara, smell that. Breathe that in. It smells like petrol and flowers. Exactly. Isn't it perfect? I laughed. And for those first few days, it genuinely was. I met Daniel on day 4. I want to be honest with you about this, because the story only makes sense if I'm honest. I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't unhappy with James. I wasn't in some secret crisis about my relationship that I'd been suppressing. I was just sitting at a beach bar at the end of a long day, waiting for Soph, who was late as always, and a man sat down 2 stools away and said, "Is the cocktail menu worth reading, or is it all just variations of the same drink?" Variations of the same drink, I said, but variation 3 is genuinely excellent. He ordered variation 3, tasted it. You were right. I'm always right about cocktails. It's my one reliable skill. He laughed. His name was Daniel, Australian, in Bali for 3 weeks, doing what he described as an extremely overdue life recalibration. What does that mean? It means I quit a job I hated, ended a lease on an apartment I was miserable in, and bought a one-way ticket to somewhere warm. That's either very brave or very impulsive. Why can't it be both? Soph arrived 20 minutes later, looked between us, and raised an eyebrow at me, so subtle that only someone who had known her for 22 years would have caught it. I caught it. I ignored it. We ran into Daniel the next day at a rice field we were visiting, and the day after at a temple. And on day 7, he was at the same restaurant as us for dinner, and Soph said, surprisingly warmly, "Just sit with us. This is ridiculous." So he did. I want to tell you what Daniel was like because I think it matters. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't performing. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers, which sounds like a low bar, but you would be amazed how many people don't clear it. He made me laugh, not the polite laugh, the surprised one, the one that comes out before you've decided to let it. And there was a conversation on day 8, sitting on a wall watching the sun go down, where he said, "Can I ask you something honestly?" "Sure." "Are you happy? Like actually happy? Not fine, not managing? Happy?" I looked at him. That's a very direct question. You don't have to answer it. I thought about it. I think I'm mostly happy. I think there are parts of my life that feel settled, which is mostly good, and occasionally I wonder if settled and happy are exactly the same thing. He was quiet for a moment. I asked because you have this thing you do, where you're laughing and then something crosses your face for just a second, like you remembered something. You've known me for 4 days, 8 days, 8 days. That's nothing. Sometimes nothing is enough to see something. I didn't kiss him. I want to be absolutely clear about that. We had a conversation that went somewhere honest and unexpected, and when I walked back to the villa that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Not desire exactly, more like recognition, the feeling of being seen by someone who had no reason to see you yet. And I felt confused by it. Not guilty, confused. Because I loved James. I knew I loved James. But something about that conversation had snagged on a question I hadn't known I was carrying. I lay awake that night going over it. I should have talked to Soph about it. Instead, I fell asleep and thought I'd figure it out in the morning. What I didn't know while I was lying there in the dark, trying to understand what I was feeling, was that Soph was in the next room, wide awake, already on her phone. The next morning at breakfast, she was quiet. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine." She didn't look up from her coffee. "Soph," I said. "I'm fine, Mara." I let it go. I shouldn't have let it go. Daniel and I spent 3 more days in each other's orbit. Daytime, always in a group, always casual. But the conversations kept going somewhere real. On the 3rd of those days, Day 11 of the trip, he said, "Can I be honest again? You're going to be regardless. I like you. I don't know what that means given that you're engaged and I'm a person with no fixed address currently, but I wanted to say it out loud once." I looked at him for a long moment. "I like you too," I said. "And I also don't know what that means. Does it have to mean anything?" "I think it might." Or, he said carefully, "it could just be what it is. Two people who found each other briefly somewhere beautiful and were honest about it." I didn't answer that, but I didn't walk away either. That evening, I came back to the villa, and Soph was sitting on the terrace. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Not angry exactly. Something flatter than anger. "You like him," she said. "Soph, don't. I can see it. You think I can't see it after 22 years?" I sat down across from her. "It's not I haven't done anything. Yet. At all. I haven't done anything at all, and I'm not going to. But you want to." I was quiet. "I don't know what I want. I'm trying to figure out what I'm feeling. You're engaged, Mara. I know that. James is at home waiting for you. I know that too." She stood up. "I'm going to bed. Soph, can we just—" "Good night, Mara." She went inside. I sat on the terrace alone and told myself she was tired, that tomorrow it would be fine, that I knew her and she would come around. What I didn't know was that she was already typing the message. My phone rang at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. James. Who is Daniel? I felt the blood leave my face. James. I got a message last night. From Soph. What kind of message? The kind with screenshots, Mara. Screenshots of what? Nothing happened. Screenshots of you and some man on a beach, both of you very close together. Her message said you'd been spending every day with him and that she was worried and thought I should know. I closed my eyes. James, I need you to listen to me. Nothing happened. You're telling me there's a man called Daniel and nothing happened? We talked. That's it. We had conversations. About what? About life. About whether you're happy. Silence. She told you that. She told me a lot of things. I stood up from the bed, started pacing. James, whatever she told you, I need to explain this in person. I'm coming home in 3 days. Please just... I think I need some space, Mara. James, I'm not saying it's over. I'm saying I need some space. 3 days. Come home and we'll talk. He hung up. I put the phone down, walked out of my room, and knocked on Soph's door. She opened it almost immediately, which told me she hadn't been asleep. I looked at her. You messaged him. She met my eyes without flinching. You were about to make the worst mistake of your life. That was not your decision to make. Someone had to. It was not your decision, Soph. You were falling for someone else. What was I supposed to do? Just watch? Yes. Yes, that is exactly what you were supposed to do. I hadn't done anything. I was figuring out what I felt, and you went behind my back, and I was protecting you. You were not protecting me. I stared at her. What exactly did you send him? Photos, and I told him about the conversation you had on the wall. How do you know about that conversation? A pause. I was nearby. You were listening? I was. You were listening to a private conversation and then you went home and messaged my fiancé with screenshots. She lifted her chin slightly. I did what I thought was right. I looked at her for a long moment. No, I said. You didn't. I went back to my room and closed the door. We did not speak for the remaining 3 days of the trip. We shared the villa, ate at the same table twice, sat in the same car to the airport, and did not exchange a single word beyond logistical necessity. The Soph I had known for 22 years would have been devastated by that silence. This Soph seemed fine with it. That scared me more than anything else. Daniel found me on the last day. I was sitting on the beach alone. He sat down next to me without asking. You seem different, he said. Something happened. Do you want to tell me? Not really. Okay. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, "For what it's worth, whatever you're going back to figure out, I hope you figure it out. Not for me, just for you. That's very uncomplicated of you. I told you. I try to be honest." I looked at him. "Will you be okay? Your life recalibration. Eventually." He smiled. "I usually am." I flew home 14 hours later, not knowing what was waiting for me. James was not at the airport. He had always been at the airport. 4 years, every return from every trip, he was there. The arrivals hall felt enormous without him in it. I took a cab home. My key worked. At least that. The apartment was exactly as I had left it, except James' overnight bag was gone from the wardrobe. He had been here and left. I sat on the edge of the bed. Then I called him. He answered. "Are you home?" "Yes." "James, please come over. Let me explain. I need you to answer one question first." "Okay." "Did you have feelings for him?" I thought about lying. I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. I felt something. I don't know what it was. It confused me. But I want to be honest with you about that, because the alternative is lying, and I'm not going to lie to you. Long silence. He stopped. "I appreciate that. I do. But I need more time." "How much time?" "I don't know." "James? I'll call you. I promise I'll call you." He hung up, and I sat in my apartment alone and understood for the first time that Soph had not just messaged him. She had chosen the exact right moment, the exact right framing, the exact right information to do the maximum possible damage. This wasn't a friend acting on panic. This was calculated. I called her that night. She answered on the second ring. "Mara, I want you to tell me the truth. Not the version where you were protecting me. The actual truth." Silence. "Why did you really do it?" "I told you. Soph. 22 years. Don't." A longer silence. "Because it should have been me." I froze. "What?" "James. I introduced you to James. You remember that party at Rachel's community? I the one who pointed him out. I said he seemed like your type. And you just..." Her voice did something strange. "You just went over and talked to him. And 6 months later, you were together. And 2 years after that, you were engaged. And I have been..." She stopped. "You've been what?" "Watching," she said. "Watching you get everything while you what?" "While you had your own life. Soph, you've dated people you've had..." None of them were James. The room went very quiet. "You're in love with my fiancé?" She didn't answer, which was an answer. "How long?" "Doesn't matter. How long, Soph? Since the party at Rachel's?" 4 years. She had been in love with James for 4 years. She had been my best friend, my confidant, my maid of honor in waiting for 4 years while being in love with the man I was engaged to. "And Bali?" I said slowly. "You suggested Bali. You wanted me away from James." Silence. "You wanted to see if something would happen. If I would do something that would give you a reason." "Mara. And when it almost didn't happen, when I was clearly confused and nothing had actually occurred, you decided to create the reason yourself. You manufactured a crisis in my relationship because you wanted him." She didn't deny it. "I need you to not contact me," I said. "Or James. Do you understand? Mara, please. Do you understand?" "Yes." I hung up, sat in my quiet apartment, and thought about a 6-year-old girl knocking on a door asking if I wanted to ride bikes, and understood that I had never actually known her at all. The week that followed was the longest of my life. James didn't call. Soph didn't call. She respected that, at least. I went to work, did the Henderson project, came home, didn't sleep much. On day 6, my phone buzzed. Not James. Soph. One message. I told him how I feel. I thought he deserved to know. I called James immediately. She just told me, he said. He sounded stunned. She called me an hour ago and told me she's been in love with me since we met. I know, James. She said she sent the message because she wanted us to break up. I know that too. Mara. His voice changed. I'm coming over. He was at my door in 40 minutes. I opened it. We stood there looking at each other. I'm sorry, I said. I should have told you the moment I felt confused. I should have called you from Bali and said, I need to talk. I didn't, and that was wrong. Why didn't you? Because I didn't know what to say. Because I wasn't sure what it was. And I was afraid of worrying you about something that might have been nothing. Was it nothing? I looked at him. I had a feeling for someone I barely knew in a place that wasn't real life, and it made me ask myself a question. What question? Whether settled and happy were the same thing. He was quiet. And what's the answer? I think they're the same thing when you're settled with the right person. And am I? Yes, I said. James. Yes. I was confused for 10 days and I've been certain about you for 4 years. That's not a competition. He stood there for a long moment. Then he stepped inside. We talked until 3 a.m. Everything. Every honest thing. James told me that the message from Soph had ripped something open that he hadn't expected. Not because I doubted you, he said. Because I realized I'd been terrified of losing you for a while, and I'd been pretending I wasn't. Why didn't you say that? Because you seemed so sure of everything. I didn't want to be the anxious one. James, you're allowed to be the anxious one. You're allowed to be confused sometimes. We should probably both be better at this. Probably. By the time the sun came up, we were okay. Not fixed, not like it hadn't happened, but okay. Together. And Soph? Soph was not finished. 2 weeks after the conversation at my door, James called me at work. His voice was strange. She's outside my office building. What? Soph. She's been out there for an hour. She sent me a message saying she wants to talk. That she thinks if I just hear her out. Do not go down there. Mara. James, do not go down there. I know. I'm not going to. I needed to tell you. Call building security. That feels extreme. She manufactured a crisis in our relationship because she's been in love with you for 4 years without telling either of us. She sent your fiancé photos to try to break you up. Standing outside your office is not the most alarming thing she's done this month. A pause. That's a fair point. Call security, James. He did. 3 days later, she sent him a letter. Handwritten. 4 pages. He brought it to me without opening it. I don't want to read it without you knowing. I looked at the envelope. You can read it. Do you want to? No. Then I won't. He put it in the recycling bin in my kitchen. We both looked at it sitting there for a moment. Then I made coffee, and we moved on. 6 weeks after Bali, I came home to find Soph sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. Not James, mine. She stood up when she saw me. I stopped on the pavement. We looked at each other across about 10 feet of distance. I'm not here to fight, she said. Then why are you here? Because I need to say something, and I need to say it to your face. I stood there. Fine, I said. Say it. She took a breath. I've been in love with James since the night I met him. And instead of dealing with that like an adult, instead of removing myself from your lives or being honest with someone, I buried it. And I watched and I told myself that eventually it would go away. And it didn't. Soph. Let me finish. I waited. What I did in Bali was unforgivable. I know that. I told myself I was protecting you, but I wasn't. I was protecting a fantasy that was never going to happen, and I used you to try to make it real. Her voice cracked slightly, but she kept going. I have been your best friend for 22 years, and I used every piece of trust you ever gave me as a weapon. And I don't have an excuse for that. I needed you to know that I know that. I looked at her for a long time. Why did you tell him how you felt after I asked you not to contact him? Because I don't know what I thought. That if he knew something would change. Did it? Her face did something painful. He didn't call me back. I waited 3 days. Nothing. He came to me. I know. Soph. He was never going to choose you. Not because there's something wrong with you. Because he loves me. That was always the truth and you knew it. She looked at the pavement. Yeah. So what do you actually want from me right now? She looked up. Nothing. I don't want anything. I just needed to say it out loud to your face. She picked up her bag. I'm going to go now. Where? I got a job offer in Edinburgh. I'm going to take it. I stared at her. You're moving to Scotland? I think I need to go somewhere that isn't this. She gestured vaguely at the space between us. Start something different. She started walking. Soph. She stopped but didn't turn around. For what it's worth, some of it was real. Most of it was real. You were my best friend. That part wasn't a lie. She stood there for a moment. I know, she said. And she walked away. I want to be honest about what justice looked like in this situation. Because this isn't a story where someone goes to prison. This is a story about something quieter, and in some ways, more complete. Soph moved to Edinburgh 6 weeks later. She didn't ask me to come to the airport. I didn't offer. She sent one message the night before she left. I hope you're happy, Mara. I genuinely mean that. I looked at it for a long time. Then I typed back, I hope you find something in Edinburgh that's actually yours. I pressed send. She replied with a single word, thanks. And that was the end of 22 years. Not with an explosion, not with a courtroom, just the end of a thread that had been fraying for longer than I'd known. James and I got married 11 months after Bali. Small ceremony, 40 people. His brother was best man. My sister was my person. There was no maid of honor. I had thought about asking someone, a colleague I was close to, a university friend, but in the end, I decided I didn't need to fill the space. Some spaces don't need filling. Some spaces just need to be acknowledged for what they are. At the reception, James' brother gave a toast that made everyone laugh. My sister gave one that made everyone cry. And then James stood up unexpectedly. He hadn't told me he was going to speak, and said, I want to say one thing. We almost didn't get here. And I think we're here because we both decided that honesty was worth more than comfort. So he raised his glass to uncomfortable honesty, which turns out to be the most romantic thing there is. Everyone drank. I looked at him across the table. You're ridiculous, I said. You married me. I did. So what does that say about you? Nothing good, he grinned. And I thought, this is settled. This is also happy. Same thing as it turns out. Daniel, for what it's worth, I looked him up once, about a year later. He had a photography website. Travel stuff mostly. Beautiful work. There was a bio on the page. It said he had settled in Portugal, was doing what he loved, seemed happy. I looked at those photos for a while. Then I closed the tab and went to make dinner for my husband and Soph. Soph got a life in Edinburgh. I know this not because we speak, we don't, but because we have mutual friends who occasionally mention things. She has a flat near the sea, a new job she seems to love, and from what I hear, someone new. I hope that's true. Not for my sake, for hers. Because here's the thing about Soph that I've come to understand. She wasn't a villain. She was a woman who fell for someone she couldn't have and then spent 4 years being slowly eaten alive by it in silence until it made her do something she could not undo. I don't forgive what she did, but I understand it. And understanding, I've found, is lighter to carry than anger. People always ask me, do you regret Bali? And the honest answer is no. Not because of Daniel, though I think about that conversation on the wall sometimes, the one about being seen, but because of what Bali revealed. It revealed that my best friend of 22 years had been carrying something enormous and dangerous in complete silence. It revealed that James and I had been tiptoeing around our fear of losing each other instead of talking about it. It revealed that I had been so comfortable in my life that I had stopped checking whether comfortable was enough. Bali didn't break my engagement. It broke the version of my engagement that was built on things we weren't saying. The version that came after is stronger than anything we had before. Here is what I know now that I didn't know before. The most dangerous lies in your life are rarely the ones other people tell you. They're the ones that live inside your closest relationships, in the silences you both agree to keep, in the fears you both pretend aren't there, in the feelings that go unnamed for years because naming them seems harder than carrying them. Soph named hers too late, and by the time she did, the only move she had left was to burn something down. James and I named ours just in time. That is the entire difference. If there is someone in your life you've been almost honest with, go the rest of the way. Tonight, not tomorrow. The almost is where everything goes wrong. Before you go, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it honestly before you answer. Have you ever had a friendship, a long one, a real one you would have bet your life on, where something was off, and you explained it away because the alternative was too uncomfortable to look at? I did it for years. I saw the fraction of a second before the warmth. I saw it, and I chose the comfortable explanation every single time. Drop a comment and tell me, is there someone in your life right now you've been almost honest with? You don't have to say who, just yes or no, because I think more of us are carrying almost honest relationships than we like to admit. And I think we all know somewhere what we need to do about it. If this story hit you somewhere real, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share it with the person who needs to hear it. I'll see you soon.